So this video is all about spreadsheet errors. I'm calling it gotchas in Excel because they can happen so easily. So let's look at the definition. So whenever I say gotcha, it is referring to a spreadsheet error. And number one is this, unintentional circular reference. So if you know what a circular reference is, you might think, well, just look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. If you don't see any, you're fine. That's actually not true in all cases because let's look at this formula. It's trying to sum up the three values above, but the problem is it's including the current cell in that reference. So it's summing up itself. So look at, we're in column L, we're in row 11, that's where the formula is, and it's adding up itself. So why don't we see circular reference down here in the bottom left-hand corner? Well, that's because if we go to File, Options, and we go over here and we look at formulas, the iterative calculation has been enabled, has been turned on. And we won't even get into that because these are unintentional. So we uncheck this at the bottom of the screen here. I'm going to click the OK button. And then now Excel, if we look down here, is telling us at least where the first one is. There could be hundreds, and I've seen cases where there are thousands of them, and they're all unintentional. So in this case, hopefully there's only going to be one. Let's go up here. We could do two things to get rid of it. Delete the formula, or what's better in this case is we want to have a formula here and add up the three values above. So we'll correctly change that, summing L11 to L10, which also includes L9. So now we're getting the correct value of L17. So let's go to gotcha number 2. Workbook is set to manual calculation. So we look over here. Let's say you want to get your answer, run to a meeting, and you just take that answer of 19. Well, if we look and we check the reference, it is summing up the three values above it, which we think should be correct. And aha, so we're going to look down here, no circular references. We're going to go up here, File, Options. We look at Formulas, and this is not turned on. So we think everything's fine. The problem is the workbook is set to manual calculation. So we either have to force it to calculate by pressing the F9 key or go up here and change this back to automatic. Now it changes back to 17, which is what we want. So now look at gotcha number 3. Vlookup optional parameter is not used. So if you look at this formula, you might think, okay, we're looking up the Toledo and we're getting our answer. Now we can look in here, and because there's only a small number of values, we see that that's incorrect. We should be getting 999 in this cell. But if there are many, many values, you might not catch this. Now, let's go in here and take a look. So looking at the arguments, you have 4 arguments in this function. The first one is what we're looking for, where we're looking for it, column index number. The 2 means the answer comes from column L. Here's the thing. Any parameter that has square brackets is technically optional. We don't have to put it in there. But the problem is that when you do that with the ranged lookup, it's defaulting to true, which means it's going to guess. And in this case, we do not want to guess. We are not binning numbers. We definitely want to find Toledo. So I'm going to go in here, press a comma, and press 0, and then press the Enter key. Now we're getting the NA error. That simply means that the VLOOKUP cannot find this value. That's why sometimes people think, well, wait a minute, it was working a minute ago. I was getting an answer. I'm going to take that off again and then get a number. They get an answer, not an error. That's a huge confusion and a big, big problem. When you're doing a lookup and you're not binning numbers, you have to put in the 0 or the false. That's telling Excel, do not guess, give me the answer if you can find it. So in this case, we can't find the answer, but as you can tell, I put a 0 instead of an O. So we'll come back here and we'll spell it correctly, and now we're getting the correct answer of 999. I go up here and I change that to a 7, and there we go. We're getting the correct answer. And here's another very common gotcha. Gotcha number 4. Pivot is not refreshed. We look at what we're doing here. This is about the simplest pivot you could imagine. All it's doing is adding up the values in the sales column. We can go in here and we can prove that it's looking at these values, but we can tell if I highlight these, the answer is 960. I can see down here. Now, here it's telling us the sum is 925. So someone might think that, well, we're missing something. Well, we can go in here and say, where is it now? Change data source. Go like that, and it tells us that the correct values are selected. The problem is someone went in and changed one of the raw values, and then we forgot to refresh the pivot. So if we come down here, right click, refresh the pivot, that 925 is going to change. So right click, refresh. Now it's 960. That's the correct value. And the last gotcha is gotcha number 5. Formulas were copied and pasted. So here we have, and this could be a series of formulas that goes on for 200, 300 different steps. But let's just do a simple one. We have one column of sales values. Sales version 2, what we're doing is taking this value and multiplying it by the factor up here. So it's less than 1. These numbers are going to decrease or get smaller. Now, here is our answer where we're simply saying take these above and add them all up. So we see this value. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it as a value down here. Now, this is what happens. Someone comes in and they take the formulas, maybe there's thousands of them, and they want to save calculation time. So they go like this, they copy, they paste it, they save the workbook, they send it to a friend, they forget, whatever. Someone comes over here and says, okay, I have to do two things. I have to change this factor or this variable and then take the answer and run to my meeting. So 0 decimal, let's say 0.6. Press enter and they say, oh great, I've got my answer, and they want to run to the meeting. Only problem is, well, nothing changed. That's because our formula is gone. So these two are staying the same when they should be different. So let's go back and correct the formula. This multiplied by the factor or the variable, F4 locks it in there, gets those dollar signs, press enter. Drag this down, and now we're going to see that these two are different. So this was the original, and this is now the changed total because I have the correct formulas that are still referencing both the initial value and the factor or the variable up here. So this formula still goes all the way through. It goes from here to this area, and it also all of these include both the variable and the original value.